the conflict that continues to escalate between Israel and Hezbollah. The conflict between the two sides has deep roots in the history of South Lebanon, particularly the bloody and protracted struggle that lasted from 1985 to 2000. This period, often overshadowed by other Middle Eastern conflicts, was pivotal in shaping Hezbollah's rise from a small militia into one of the region's most powerful non-state actors. Now, in the 1960s and 1970s, displaced Palestinians, including militants affiliated with the Palestine Liberation Organization, began to settle in southern Lebanon. Conflicts between Palestinians and the Christian militia sparked a civil war in Lebanon, fueled by Soviet support for the Arabs and the American support for the Christian coalition. During the conflict, Palestinian groups used southern Lebanon as a launching pad for attacks on northern Israeli towns. In an attempt to create a buffer zone to safeguard its northern border, Israel attacked southern Lebanon in 1978. 4 years later, Israel invaded Lebanon once again, marking a significant escalation. Israel's objective was to drive the PLO out of Lebanon entirely, and this operation culminated in a full-scale invasion reaching Beirut. By 1985, Israel had withdrawn from most of Lebanon but maintained a 15 to 20 kilometer wide security zone in South Lebanon designed to prevent cross-border attacks. This area was patrolled by the South Lebanon Army, a Christian militia allied with Israel. Yet the occupation, which was meant to be a short-term measure, transformed into a lengthy entanglement. It sparked resistance from various groups in Lebanon, particularly Hezbollah. The legacy of the South Lebanon conflict continues to shape the Middle East today. All right, amidst the escalation of war, which is likely to risk an all-out Middle Eastern regional conflict. Let's start off our conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Peter Baum. He's a foreign editor and political analyst, Weekly Blitz. And Peter, let's hear it from you with regards to a complete rejection by Israel for a 21-day pause in war between Hezbollah and Israel. Where is this taking the conflict to?
So I don't think it's any surprise that Israel has rejected this 21-day ceasefire. They clearly have aims and objectives that they want to achieve, and a 21-day ceasefire would stand in the way of those aims and objectives. So let me just take your listeners and viewers back to the October the 7th. When Hamas attacked Israel, I don't think anyone in the world geopolitically would understand the reaction of the Jewish state of Israel to this Hamas atrocity. Normally, when Hamas attacks, there's usually a couple of weeks of fighting, rockets are sent over, Israel responds, and then there is a complete lull in the military activities between the two. But this time, Israel decided that it would have a stated aim and objective of decimating Hamas, which it has done militarily. Let's be clear about that. They may have a few rockets left, but they're not firing them. The organization militarily has been utterly destroyed, and politically they are on a downward trajectory. Now, obviously, Hezbollah, seeing this happening, were going to try and retrieve some military perspective to try and get Israel to climb down. For Hezbollah, that hasn't been the case. Israel is not climbing down, and it has an aim and objective of trying to defeat Hezbollah militarily. Whether that's achievable or not is another thing, but at the moment it seems that Israel have the upper hand in the military fight between them and Hezbollah, and clearly the Israeli government have an aim and objective of trying to weaken Hezbollah as much as possible, and that's why the 21-day ceasefire, as far as Israel's concerned, despite the political animosity that they are going to face, they don't want it to happen at the moment.
Right, absolutely, Peter. But you know, it is a risk that Israel is taking for a possible all-out Middle East conflict, which will not just involve Hezbollah and Israel, which is not just going to involve Hamas and Israel. It is going to then have a conflict that will enrage and will push Iran into a direct combat with the Israeli forces.
Well, let's just take that step by step and talk about the wider conflict, as you so rightly put it. Jordan has not fired one rocket into Israel. There have been no Jordanian deaths. Egypt has not fired one rocket into Israel. There have been no Egyptian deaths. Clearly, Egypt and Jordan are in the same anti-Iranian alliance as are the USA, most of the European Union, and obviously Israel. Now let's take it bit by bit. Iran tried to give Israel a warning by sending hundreds of rockets into Israel after Israel carried out the assassination of a Hamas leader on Iranian soil, a clear embarrassment for Iran. The Houthis are being used by Iran to do Iran's dirty work. But something that has gone unreported in the mainstream media, which absolutely staggers me, I just don't understand it, which gives you some kind of sense of balance, why I don't think there will be an all-out conflict. And that's what's happened in Yemen in the last 2 months. And I swear to you, I've seen nothing in mainstream media about this. There have been the most devastating floods in Yemen in July, August, and carrying on into September. Infrastructure and livestock has been wiped away. Cholera is rife, hundreds of people have been killed, and tens of thousands living in mud huts and displaced. Yemen is on its knees because of a natural disaster that somehow has not reached the press. And by the way, it's happening in those areas where the Houthis are in main control. So I don't think the Houthis are in any position at the moment to carry out the kind of military organisation against Israel as the world at large believes they are capable of. They are not. The floods are still happening. Islamic relief charities are begging for help for the people of Yemen. Disease is rife out there.
Okay.
So this is also something.
But at the same time, we continue to see the rocket propellers, the strikes that are hitting Israel, that have been intercepted. Obviously, there has to be a backing that is involved financially and militarily in terms of arms and ammunition that is reaching the Houthis living in Yemen and operating out of this. Lev Aran, he's an Israel-based freelance columnist and journalist, also on the telecast with me. Lev, how is the world going to move forward, particularly to the United States of America, that has thus far been supporting Israel in its war that has waged for far too long between Hamas and Israel, now moving upwards to the northern part of Israel along the border, the Golan Heights, and there you have it, Lebanon. Now there have been strikes, there have been hundreds of Hezbollah officials and militants that have been killed right now. How long does this war go on?
Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what the war is about. Unlike Gaza or the West Bank, we don't really have, let's say, a domestic political feud inside Israel about Lebanon. Israel wants one thing. It wants 1701 resolution, the UN resolution, to be implemented. It means that no Hezbollah terrorists can move into the Israeli border with Lebanon. And Hezbollah wants to have the right of solidarity with Iran, with the Palestinians in Gaza, and so on. So the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel is not about a territory. Israel has given each and every inch of Lebanese territory back to Lebanon. It is not even an ethnic conflict. It is a conflict about the rules of the game. Israel wants Hezbollah to, let's say, fight against Israel only if Israel and Lebanon have a real territorial conflict, while Hezbollah wants to be, let's say, an official proxy of Iran and to have the right to attack Israel whenever one of Iran's allies is attacked. And this is something that Israel cannot digest.
What is it that is stopping Israel from agreeing to the ceasefire proposal that has been led by United States of America? Do you think it is going to be judicious on part of Israel to have that 21-day ceasefire?
I think it is a good question, because unlike Gaza, that in a way, once we control the Egyptian border with Gaza, we control all of Gaza. In Lebanon is simply too big, and we have Shia militancy groups from, let's say, from Marjayun with Israel up to Tehran. It means that once Israel gives Hezbollah 7 days, 10 days, 21 days, 1 year, never mind, it means that Hezbollah can regroup, and all the achievements that you have seen during the last week, they will simply disappear. So unlike the Gaza front, which is quite Hogaya, it is like quite finished, with Hezbollah, we are still a bit celebrating the low death toll because of our technology. But we know as Israelis that once ceasefire is there, it is very easy for the Hezbollah to regroup because of the border issue between Lebanon and Syria, Syria with Iraq, and Iraq with Iran.
Leb, also, have the Israelis at this point of time, are they confident that they have been able to tackle the Hamas problem along the Gaza Strip and therefore movement of their troops in northern Israel?
It's a good question. I think that officially we are on a two-front war, one in Gaza and one in the Lebanese border, and some will say that also West Bank is a third front. But I think that as far as the number of soldiers, tanks, infantry is concerned, Gaza is quite kaput. And we have only a one-front war against Hezbollah, because Gaza is under control, more or less, and also the West Bank. So I think Israel was smart enough to start the operation in Lebanon only once Hamas became extremely weak. And even some people say that the leadership of Hamas is dead, but nobody tells us about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Peter and Lev, for joining me and sharing your views on this very sensitive subject, the war that we fear is going to go on indefinitely.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.